On the 2nd of December 2016, the Independent Electoral Commission announced the results as required by Section 43 of the Constitution. Adama Barrow was declared elected as president. This is why he became the president-elect. He was congratulated by the loser, who promised to cooperate to effect a peaceful transfer of executive power. The loser decided to renege from his earlier position and eventually filed an election petition to contest the validity of the results. The court case is still waiting to be heard. However, his term had expired. The coalition emphasized to him that when his term expires, the Constitution makes it mandatory for President-elect Adama Barrow to be elected, to assume office. Who is elected to assume office? The inauguration committee continued to prepare for the inauguration at the National Stadium, and over 1,000 transports would have come from all over the country, bringing people to grace the occasion. All the ECOWAS heads of state and many other heads of state and government all over the world had planned to witness the historic occasion or send envoys. Many Gambians abroad and visitors requested for invitation to join in the commemoration. Journalists from all over the world sought accreditation to cover the transfer of executive power. Gambia was poised to witness the largest gathering of foreign dignitaries that the country has ever known, to witness the transfer of executive power from an incumbent president to the incoming president for the first time in the history of this country. The preparation for the inauguration at the stadium was in full force by the time the high-level delegation, ECOWAS delegation, chose to travel with President-elect Barrow to Mali for further negotiation. ECOWAS heads of state met with President-elect Barrow and continued their mediation efforts, while the mediation also had the fundamental objective of ensuring that the dictates of the Gambian Constitution is respected. On the other hand, the loser did also file an injunction so that the inauguration would not take place. The court processes were stalled. Neither the process dealing with the election petition nor the one dealing with the injunction could be heard, because the judge had to recuse from the case because he was made a party to the injunction. Hence, the government could not stop President-elect Barrow from being inaugurated on the 19th of January 27 by relying on the decision of a court. On the 17th of January, precisely 2 days before the inauguration, the outgoing president decided to declare a state of emergency under Section 34 of the Constitution. Section 34 empowers the president, and that is, he may at any time make a proclamation published in the Gazette to declare that a state of public emergency exists in the whole or any part of the Gambia, or a situation exists which, if it is allowed to continue, may lead to a state of public emergency. They relied on Section B, which deals with if a situation exists which, if it allowed to continue, may lead to a state of public emergency. As far as the coalition is concerned, when he unconstitutionally declared an annulment of the election, as well as to call for fresh elections, the coalition did not go in the street because the coalition was confident that it has passed the stage of being a protest movement, that it was a government in the waiting and must wait for its day to assume office. So there was no threat to the security of the country. And since then, joyously, the supporters of the coalition were actually preparing for inauguration. So the declaration of a state of emergency exists only because of the creation of that condition by the incumbent. It is important to bear in mind that yes, he is empowered to declare a state of emergency which lasts for 7 days if the National Assembly is sitting, and 21 days if the National Assembly is sitting. Then it is left to the National Assembly to actually deal with the issue of prolongation of a state of emergency. So it states under Section 99 that the National Assembly could declare a state of emergency because it is supposed to stand dissolved any day immediately preceding the day appointed for the constitution of a new National Assembly. But at any time when the Gambia is at war or a state of emergency is declared, the National Assembly may, by resolution supported by the votes of not less than 2/3 of all the members, extend the life of the National Assembly for not more than 3 months at a time, but the life of the National Assembly shall not be extended under this subsection for more than a total period of 1 year. They have exploited this particular provision without a state of emergency existing in the Gambia, without a state of war existing in the Gambia, in order to extend the term of the presidency. But in essence, it is important for everybody to bear in mind that Section 100 of the Constitution forbids the passing or taking a bill to the National Assembly to deprive a Gambian citizen an acquired right. So President-elect Barrow considers himself as President-elect and as of right a person who should assume office as had already prevailed. So in that regard, the incumbent is trying through the National Assembly to extend his term beyond the original term which ended today, and consequently should have decided to hand over power in peace. And President-elect Barrow considers himself to have acquired the right to be the President of the Republic and who should assume office on the 19th. It is very clear that the inauguration that should have taken place at the National Stadium will not be taking place as planned. And all those who are supporters of the coalition are being asked to prepare themselves for the commemoration, the celebration that will eventually take place when President-elect Barrow actually is in the State House. At this very moment, he is preparing for his inauguration through other means. And I'm sure when we get information from them, the inauguration committee around him would be telling the Gambian people the developments in that regard. What we now have in the Gambia is a situation where the Gambian people had decided to take charge of their destiny and had gone to the polls, hotly contested elections, and had decided to accept the results of the elections. But the leader who conceded defeat and became a loser has decided to turn the cards, resorted to the courts, and where difficulty exists in the courts, decided to look for other ways of circumventing the courts in order to enlarge a power that is not elected, whilst the power that is elected is deprived from assuming office. That is absurd. And consequently, we are calling on the outgoing president to accept the dictate, the verdict of the people, the verdict of reason, the verdict of the Constitution. This is what all Gambians subscribe to. And this is what all Gambians expected their leaders to respect. The clear position is that the president-elect should assume office on the 19th, and the court case should have been allowed to continue. And when the court decides, then the verdict of the court will be respected. But to circumvent the verdicts of courts in order to enlarge power or office is a ready way of inviting confusion in society. And this is what the coalition has avoided for 22 years as members of the opposition, to ensure that we have a country where the consent of the people will prevail. And that's precisely the reason why political parties, opposition parties, decided to come to form a coalition in order to be able to strengthen their power base so that Gambia will transfer power democratically. It means that at this moment, the incumbent want to deprive Gambia of that fundamental historic development of people finally asserting that power belongs to them. To assume office will not be abrogated by any force on this earth. That is very clear. And that he is working on his inauguration, and he has his own inauguration committee working on that. The details they know, the details we do not know, and whenever we have the details, we'll tell you. I think that is very clear. We are saying the supporters should be waiting for the celebration. Whenever he gets to the State House, the date will be given when this national celebration will take place. I think that is very clear.
Yes.
So you asserted the fundamental right of the press to be able to give people a voice. Does that mean that media will be present for the inauguration, which obviously would be the only way we can tell that story to the world?
Well, continue contacting me whenever I have details. I'll be able to give you. And you should also have your correspondence in the other capitals like Dakar, Accra, and Abuja, so as to ask the other heads of states who were supposed to also come to the inauguration. So if I have information, you will get it. But I'm sure the press is very, very resilient, and I'm sure you'll be able to quickly inform each other to be able to get to where the inauguration is taking place. I'm sure, yes.
Yes, we understand the lawyer for APRC is in Dakar right now calling a press conference.
Well, thank you very much for that information. What I can tell you is that many people are leaving. Ambassadors have left, ministers have left. Not only that, people are even starting to leave. But there are Gambians who are still here. That's why we are here. And we feel secure because our conscience is clear that this is our nation. We'll be here until we see the change that the people have made effective. So in short, of course, you will end up having the crumbling of a state institution. Just look at the street. It's like somebody has asked people go on a national strike and let nobody go to work, let nobody go to, open your shop. That is exactly what is happening. What is happening in Gambia is unique. It is the people taking charge. And Gambia is shut down, it's a standstill. That is the reality. And the incumbent should realize that you cannot run a country that is shut down. You cannot run a country where your ministers and ambassadors are disappearing. You cannot run a country where the whole world do not recognize you as the president of a republic. It's embarrassing to even call a state of emergency to extend your say when Even by extending it, nobody in the world will recognize your state of emergency. So definitely, if he has good advisors, if he had people close to him, today, this very minute, they will be initiated and say, the end has come, accept it. You cannot continue. It is impossible to continue. Even if there were no other moves by anybody, no country can operate under such a climate. It is not possible. One must accept the end when it has come. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us.